to you. Glad you're here joining me for another amazing episode, I believe, of these topics that are going to help us really think about our lives and figure out maybe there are some changes that we have to make. So I'm hoping to help you reflect. This topic for today may be a bit triggering. I will also share that sometimes I will trigger you on purpose. And I promise you it's done with a whole bunch of love. And the point behind it all, the purpose behind it all, is to really help you reflect on the choices that you're making, possibly on a daily basis. Many of which later on we tend to beat ourselves up about later. So the reason why I do share these topics, and I am sometimes intentional about choosing topics that may be triggering to you, it's because I'm all about really helping you change, especially for those of you that are sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that's just a whole new level of like, I'm so done with this. Many of us can complain that we don't like the way things are taking place, and we kind of just complain about it and then do nothing about it. We engage in the same patterns, right? So two things. Sometimes it is actually on purpose that we do these things. And sometimes we don't understand that there's programs running behind us that are encouraging the same behavior, right? So today we're going to talk about a couple things, but the main topic for today is really thinking about others and our attachments to them. So that being said, I'm hoping that you guys are along for the ride, that you are going to be okay with challenging yourself to ask yourself the questions you may need to ask yourself if you do want to change the behavior you're engaging in, if you do want to change the results that you're getting, okay? So now, what is this topic really about, right? So when we help other people, we're not really doing it to get something in return. But what tends to happen is as we do this more and more, a lot of us become a little more bitter when people aren't making the changes they're saying they're going to make. So again, let's go back to the subconscious mind and how things happen. They're patterns. Sometimes it's not intentional, but we're kind of doing these things over and over again. And for those of us that want to change, it could be a little challenging to continue to be consistent to making different choices, right? Right instead of left, saying no instead of yes, things of that nature. So this is no different than any other topic. It just happens to be something that's very detrimental for a lot of people. So it's important enough for me to come on here and share about how things could be handled probably a little more positively for you and others. I will also share with you that as you are changing who you are and actually creating healthy boundaries, people don't always like it. So I want you to keep that in mind, that it's a disclosure. There are some growing pains that come from changing the way you do things in life. So I want to let you know that it's not going to be all, roses and nice perfumes. It is going to be challenging at times, and you will get emotional. So today, that being said, again, I will be triggering a couple of you this morning, and I say that with a huge smile on my face, because even though that we have to go through the uncomfortable emotions sometimes, there is always the light at the end of the tunnel. And I know for some of us, this is like, oh my gosh, why do people keep doing this? And why do I keep doing that? And again, it becomes a beat obsession. So, excuse me, my goal for you today, again, is to self-reflect on the choices that you're making. Every time I have clients, I tend to attract people that put themselves on the back seat. In the back burner. That's kind of typical. And many times when they've come very worn out with living for everybody else. They're not feeling very worthy. They're not feeling that they're being valued. But the whole point of it is that they're looking for others to show them that value. They're looking for others to show them the worthiness based on other people's words and actions. And depending on your love language, if somebody does, buy you something or say how much or spend quality time with you, like we're going to touch on all those type of love languages. But what I want you to really think about today is how you have been behaving towards and with other people. So again, our return for helping others is not what's always at the forefront when we are being of service. But in time, the attachment followed by a not so happy emotion pattern contribute to you feeling bitter about helping, right? And that was myself included. So I love to talk about these topics. I have very many personal stories with each one of them. And I say stories because I didn't learn the first time around or the second time around. But the more and more I implemented and the more and more I paid attention to how I felt, I was way more responsible to taking action of how I was pursuing my value and my worth, right? So it's always, sometimes we get a little bit bitter because, we're helping, air quotes, right? Especially when we see that these individuals keep repeating unhealthy patterns. Maybe you've encouraged someone to get out of a toxic relationship while having invested so much time and energy in many, many, many conversations, to later find out they continue in the same relationship. So it takes time out of your life, right, to encourage others. And some of us do it with a whole bunch of love. So, somebody who might be complaining about a job and you're like, hey, you should look here, you should do this, you should do that. I want to go to school, I want a career change. And you're over here going out of your way finding resources, and the person's just saying the same, right? Again, change is not very much the forefront of people's minds. They say they want to change, but they really don't want to. And then again, change does require changing time, changing efforts, changing everything. So some of us just don't want to change, and that's okay. Everybody's on their own journey. So today we're going to cover a little more about that, about how we're going to be more diligent about, investing our time and energy on the things that actually are going to change. And because we have no control over what people do with our information, we're going to focus more on ourselves. Because what I want to chat about today is like everyday life, the chaos and the constant obstacles that we are creating. Yes, you heard me correctly. We are the ones creating chaos. We are the ones creating obstacles. Now, I'm not saying every single obstacle or anything chaotic or everything chaotic is us, because life happens. But you will find that our attitude towards it actually magnifies what you're attracting to create more of those. So if you find yourself living in chaos, if you find yourself, with constant obstacles, you have to stop and ask yourself, what the heck am I doing? Because apparently what I'm doing is not creating less obstacles or less chaos in my life. So again, this episode is going to help you be more self-reflective, really hone into your own power, really stop focusing on other people and what they do with what you do for them, but thinking about how it's best to spend that time and energy invested in you, right? Because there's going to be a couple of questions I'm going to have you ask yourself today. How would things change if you focused on you instead of like, oh my gosh, I helped so and so and I was there for 2 days and she had a heartbreak, whatever, and then she's back with that person, or he complained about going to school and I went through all this trouble of registering him and he never even showed up. Like, how many of you raise your hand? How many of you have done this for people? And it's not like you're doing it to receive any type of payment or extra gratitude. You're doing it because you love these people. You're seeing them suffer and you are naturally inclined to help them. Air quotes, right? I'm going to keep using the word help and let's see how this works. So maybe we should try something different and spend more time taking care of ourselves. What would your life look like, right, if you channeled all that time and energy into you? Think about it. How many of you stop instead of complaining about what somebody else did with your time and energy and how they didn't apply it because they didn't do what you wanted them to? But what ended up happening was what? You ended up saying, hey, I took that time, I took my energy, I invested in this person. They didn't do anything with it. How would I approach that differently next time? Right? I'm not saying stop caring. I'm not saying stop being with people. I'm not saying stop investing in time, but I want you to realize how much time you need to be spending with individuals and the things that they say and how many emotions you're actually going to invest in helping these people change, air quotes, right? Again, we talk about change. It's not easy. It does take some time and energy. It does take some time to reflect. It takes a whole bunch of other stuff than just showing up. But at the end of the day, you have to decide who you're going to show up for. Are you going to continue to show up for people who don't know what to do with the information that you are giving them? One, maybe are not at the proper time in their life to make the changes that you would love for them to make, right? Are there people who might just not ever change? And that sounds horrible to say. But at the end of the day, there are some people who are here that will do the same thing over and over again, not because they don't want to, but they don't feel the need to grow, to change, to improve. Some people, it's just too hard for them, right? And they'll keep making excuses over and over again. Some people are relying on people like us to come and be their freaking Tylenol, right? And I want you to ask yourself, are you being somebody's Tylenol where they're going to need you every 2 or 4 hours when their headache returns? Or are you actually helping people sustain a healthier lifestyle? And then I'm going to go ahead and ask you an additional question. Some people spend their lives being people's Tylenol and they feel good about it. They like the high they get when people actually listen at the moment. Then they get bitter that people don't do what they were supposed to do, air quotes, right? With the information that you provided for them. And then we get upset. But guess what? When they need us again, we're right there again. What is that? It's a vicious cycle. It's a pattern that many people who are trying to find their worth in other people and the fact that they need you and your value based on their problems and how you come along, you solve it. Because I'm going to be very real with you guys. That is a very, very common thing for people who get their value or feel they get their value from helping other people. You go in there, oh my gosh, I had a breakup. I went over there, grabbed some lunch. We did this, we talked, we had ice cream. And then you like pat yourself on the back and say, hey, yeah, I did a good job. I helped my friend. She was suffering, all that good stuff. He was having a really hard time. I took him out for a drink, boom, whatever. So that was a good time. You pat yourself on the back because now you feel useful, right? And then a day or two later, maybe even faster than that, maybe sooner than that, they're engaging in the same behavior again. So that's why I said this is going to be a little triggering. What exactly are you doing? Why are you distracting yourself so much by trying to help other people that you put yourself in the back seat? And some of us do it on purpose, right? Because we don't want to focus on our own issues. We don't want to focus on the things that we're actually supposed to be working on. So we distract ourselves because somebody else's issues are bigger and better. And you're observing them now. Here's how it works, right? You're observing that, oh my gosh, they felt so good when I shared all this information. So I must be doing a good job. And you literally grade yourself because you see that this person was happy for at least the hour or 2 or 3 that you were hanging out with them Netflixing or whatever, right? So if this is you, I love you. This was me for a very, very, very long time. And I do want to tell you that there's better. The same love and attention you're providing for these people can be applied to you. And a lot of us don't do it because we're afraid of failing. We're afraid of, oh my gosh, I give such great advice. But the question to you is, how often do you take your own great advice? What are you doing with the comments you're sharing with other people? Are you applying them to your life? Are you leading a life where people think, hey, I want to live a life like that? And let's just say everything's squared away in your life and you have this amazing career. You love being at home. You love to do what you do. But there's a part of you that still feels that needs to be validated by being able to help, air quotes, other people, right? There's something wrong there. If you got your life all together, but you're still investing in people who aren't doing anything with the time and energy you're investing, I'm going to ask you to look at that in your life, because that's the point that I had to get to, right? I was doing great. I wanted everybody else to eat at the table with me, right? Let's have this abundant life. Let's be happy. Let's be grateful, whatever. But it felt like I just wanted it more for them than they wanted it for themselves. So I made myself a promise when I started understanding what was happening, because it took me a minute, right? And I think I'm pretty bright, but this took me a really long time to say, oh my gosh, what am I doing? What the heck am I doing? And it was just kind of like somebody just threw cold water on my face. And I just woke up and said, what the heck am I going to do now? Because one thing is being in denial, right? Let's just say not understanding, not knowing, not seeing. And then we're in denial. And then we have the whole, my gosh, what the heck do I do now? Now that's a very weird place to be, because you start realizing I've given all this advice. I've spent all this time with this person. I've shared all these things. But at the end of the day, I don't even know how to take the first step to taking care of me, to end in this vicious cycle of being somebody's Tylenol, coming back and beating myself about it because they're making the same choices. Again, subconscious programming, you guys. I really don't believe people are like, you come over, you have ice cream, you give them therapy for 4 hours, and then they say, screw you, I don't care what you say, I'm going to go do what I do. That's not the case. That is not what I'm saying. What happens is they're stuck in their own paradigm and their own way of thinking and believing, and they're also engaging in these, let's say, toxic relationships or behaviors because they're getting their worth. How many people do you know that are in horrible, toxic relationships and they know it? They know it, but they say, I start looking at the positive instead of the negative, right? They would rather feel good for a little while instead of think about the reality of being without this person, right? That goes, I don't care. It doesn't have to be an abusive relationship per se, emotionally, physically, or sexually. But people would rather hold on to a little bit of hope, a little bit of feel good, than to think about the process of detaching themselves from these people. So I want you guys to know that right away. People don't hurt you on purpose, and they don't engage in this behavior on purpose. Most people don't do that, right? So I'm not saying that they don't appreciate you. But how much appreciation do you need before you start making different choices for yourself? Before you start learning that one, attachment to other people and the expectations that we have of them is not healthy, because now you're putting your value and your worth in what people do with the information you give them, right? I know that everyone, myself included, we do the best that we can with the information that we have at the time that we have it. So I can go back and beat myself up about things that I did when I was 15, 16, 20 years old, right? Well, I'm 45 now. I've learned, I've grown, I get it now, right? I wouldn't make the same choices that I did when I was there. And I made those mistakes because I only had limited knowledge, right? Right now, the whole goal of these podcasts is for you to have more knowledge when it comes to decision making. When it comes to you really trying to understand, why do I do what I do? And instead of beating yourself up about it, the goal for you to do is say, hey, this is a realization that I've probably been seeking. And now that I have it, I have to figure out what to do with this information. The same way I would want somebody to do something with the advice I give them, I'm going to model that first. So the question to you today is, what are you doing? What are you doing to model the behavior where you're engaging in healthier behavior, right? Because yeah, spending time with somebody and trying to get them to change their ways and they keep going back to their patterns, that's very unhealthy because you get attached to the outcome. I don't care who you are. If I'm sitting there and I'm this professional and I teach all this stuff, whatever, and I spend time with somebody and they really this time look like they're going to change, and I'm spending all this time and energy with them, and I can already visualize them being successful and happy and making the best of this decision, and then they don't, like, dang it, all that time I spent, whatever, that still happens. So I'm careful who I share my information with. Why? Because I don't want to get into the vicious cycle of later on being upset because they did nothing with the time that I invested in them, right? So those are points for you to pretty much self-reflect. Take notes. This information can be very useful in helping you transition into the world that you want to live, instead of repeating these patterns and tripping them. Because if you're doing the same thing, how does it make you any different than them? How do we sit and judge people because they make the same choices over and over again that are not healthy for them? And here you are also being somebody's Tylenol, doing this over and over again because now your worth is dependent on what they do with your information or how happy you make them feel for an hour or two, right? A little triggering, you guys. But it's a very real discussion that you need to have with yourself. It's a very real topic that you really need to sit down and reflect on if you want your life to change. Because if you're upset about what people are doing with your time and energy, and you're doing the same thing they're doing, which is not making any changes, we can compare it and say, oh, well, what I do is different than what they do. No, it isn't. It isn't any different. You can tell yourself that story, but at the end of the day, it's not any different. What makes you different if you're engaging in the same negative behaviors and they're not negative per se when you actually invest in them, right? Your heart's in the right place. What I'm saying is the vicious cycle you get caught up in. Because what do? Oh my God, I can't believe it. They didn't do this, they didn't do that. And if they would only listen, their life would get better. That's me with you right now. Right? Does it matter? Is it different? No. Because I can work with somebody and see the best version of themselves. I get a glimpse of what it would look like if they just made themselves a priority, if they were consistent, if they made different choices, if they stopped investing so much time in people who aren't ready. And then if I get too caught up in that and they don't decide to do that, then my feelings get hurt. So I do it differently now. I have a healthy boundary. I can see people for where they are, for where they could be, where they've come from. And I can suggest a line of, right, things that they can engage in to better their life, to cut out the negative self-talk and the self-sabotaging behavior. I can do that. But if they don't want to do anything with it, I have to say, okay, Velia, that's their life. Respect them. Honor their journey, honor where they are, honor their timing, and you talk to the next person. Because there's a lot of people out there that do want to change. I just don't sit and force myself on anybody like I used to. I don't sit there and say, oh my gosh, if this person actually signs up for school or gets out of this relationship, that means that I would have done my job. Woohoo, yay me, right? We're all seeking for approval. We're all seeking to be accepted, but we're choosing to be accepted and loved and really honored by the wrong people. The only person right now that needs to be your priority to make happy is you. To please is you. To be okay with every morning when you wake up and look at yourself in the mirror is you. Because at the end of the day, that's who you have control over. you and your choices. And even then we fall short. So why do we expect people to just get up one day and take all your advice and live their life differently? It's ridiculous. But yet we think that way. We literally expect it. And I'm here to tell you, you need to stop having unrealistic expectations. Not if you want to get somewhere in life. Not if you want to get out of the negative self-talk, right? Not if you want to understand that the only person who can give you your worth is you. That the only person who'll ever understand how to value you is you. We teach people how to treat us. So if you're always there and you're always bowing down and you're always submissive, there's nothing wrong with loving people. There's nothing wrong with helping them when they're ready. When you see they've done something with the time that you've invested, there is nothing wrong with it. It's a beautiful thing. And just like I've had experiences where I've, given so much time and energy with people that don't do anything with it in a past life, right? Before I knew better. Now I get to see, oh, this is who I was supposed to save my time and energy for. Now I get it. But it took, that cold bucket of water to be poured on my head, right? And for me to bump around a couple times and get it together, right? It doesn't happen overnight. But now I have shortcuts. Now I know how to get there. And it's very similar to what we talked about before. Like I help lead people to the place where they will be free to be themselves, free to understand that they're the only ones who can ever give them the power that they're seeking from other people. And there's shortcuts. So you will see results a lot faster, but you do need to take time for yourself and say, what the heck do I want? How many of you have even sat with yourself and figured out what the heck you want with your life? I can guarantee that many of you are too busy trying to figure out everybody else's lives that you don't even know where you stand anymore. Because if you're not helping people, then what's the point, right? Talk to me about that. I know very much what that feels like. What would you like? Oh, I just want people to be happy and living in their purpose and feeling joy and forgiving themselves and healing their trauma. That's all I want. Fine, Velia. Do that with people who are ready to have that too. So I'm not saying people don't appreciate your help. Again, they do. But it's not really help, you guys. It's temporary relief of whatever symptom they're experiencing. Now, one day they'll be ready for you. But in the meantime, how about you invest that in yourself? Go through your own personal training boot camp, right? Figure it out. It makes you better anyway. I talk to people all the time, tired moms, tired executives, a whole bunch of professionals and, teenagers. I mean, you name it, every age group. And they feel like they have to do everything for everyone. And I'm like, I get that feeling. I get it. But where does it leave you at the end of the day when you're doing it the way you know how? There's a different way of doing it. I know I talk to moms all the time and dads, and they want to be everything for their kids. Be everything for you. So you teach your kids, you model the behavior to them. Because you being a better you makes you a better everything for everybody else anyway. But if you're over there trying to be everything for everybody else and you're not investing in yourself, what are you doing? Self-reflect. What exactly are you doing? Trying to save the world and leaving yourself for last. It doesn't make sense when you look at it logically, you guys. But somebody tell my heart that, right? I'm talking to your heart. I'm talking to your heart that is going to communicate and allow your mind to come in. And you guys balance that out. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Balance it out. Now, how do you start? You start asking yourself what you want, what your heart's desire is. And then you ask yourself, what are you doing to get closer to attaining that? And many of you will come, oh, I help other people. How is that getting closer to helping you? You've been helping other people. That comes natural to you. I'm challenging you to think about what you're going to do to take care of you. I've had clients that are really busy moms and, husband goes to work, some get to stay at home, and then they come and they cook and they clean and they're serving everybody their food. And they're always the last ones to eat. And I love when they share that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's something wrong with the expectation that you're going to feel valued because of it. That's the difference. So if you're cooking and cleaning and you go to work and you come back and you're serving everybody and you're the last one to sit down and somebody complains about your food, how the hell does that make you feel after you've sacrificed so much? It's literally like you've given them your heart and they can squish it. And do they mean to do that? I don't believe so. I don't believe people complain to hurt you. I don't think that. I don't think that people are genuinely going to just complain to hurt you. It's just how they're feeling at the time. But you'll take it to heart. You'll beat yourself up about it. And then you do it again and again and again. So I give a homework assignment very simple, like you serve yourself first. Tell your family that you're healing, you're going through some things, because that's a trauma response. And you serve yourself first. And oh my gosh, the looks that I get. What? And I'll even add send me a selfie. So you go through a lot of uncomfortable feelings because you're doing things you're not used to doing. And you're already judging yourself as a bad person because you're serving yourself first. I said, let everybody serve themselves. What changes when you allow everybody to do their part? One, you have to go through weird emotions. Two, you don't feel responsible. If they don't like the food, it's okay, right? But there are things that we do little by little that we don't attach expectations to. And I tell people all the time, it's hard to not have expectations. It is. It's a little challenging, especially if you, again, you're looking for your worth in those statements. But here's what I do know, that the minute you hone in your own power, you serve yourself. You prepare this food with lots of love. You clean your house because you're grateful for it. Whether or not somebody appreciates it or says something about it has nothing to do with how you feel, because you're able to clean a house that you love. You're able to eat a meal that you love, that you prepared, right? Because many of us do these things, again, to seek the approval of others. So what happens if you just do it because you want to do it? What happens if you just do it because you're grateful? What happens if a friend keeps calling you for the same thing and say, hey, friend, I love you, but right now I'm learning a new way to be so I can help you later on when you're ready? They're not going to like it. People don't like it when we have healthy boundaries that includes us not running to save them. And it's very natural, right? I would love for everybody to be ready for me when I needed them. But during the process, it can be a little painful, because here are the people that you felt were the ones that were supposed to tell you how worthy you were. And now they're mad because you said no. The question later on is, do you want people like that in your life? That you're actually letting them know, because you're communicating, I need this for me. I have to make some changes. I don't like the way my life is going. And sometimes I'm too available. And I need to know what that looks like for me and what it is that I'm going to do to heal up any trauma I have around it, because it is trauma response, you guys. A lot of us would rather help fix somebody else's issues and focus on ourselves. Why? Because helping them is a lot more fun than sitting down and reflecting on your own traumas and why you respond the way you do. Why you go help that friend whose husband isn't so nice, right? Why you go help that friend whose wife is not doing very healthy things. Why? But when you sit down and you think about your own traumas and the own things that you have to heal, it's not very comfortable sometimes. And that's why I say I have shortcuts. Because even though it's uncomfortable, the healing that I have the privilege of working through is very, very quick. And I tell people that the hardest part of my job is helping you to live a life without trauma. That means trauma responses, those are included. What do you do when you have healed up a lot of your trauma? A lot of our identity is wrapped up in our trauma. So for many people, when they don't have anything to complain about, or when they don't have anything to suffer with, they don't know how to act because they've done this before. For so long, it's become your individuality. Like, it really has become who you are. So when you start healing up a bunch of things, you guys, that you used to just kind of have as your, what's the word I can use? Your go-to, right? When you start healing that up, you don't respond the same way anymore. You're like, oh my gosh, this is weird. This is different. And that's where the coaching comes along, because as you're healing your trauma, as you're healing your habits, as you're healing the way you used to do things, and even though you got validated for an hour from a friend or 20 minutes, and you were holding on to that, and that's all it was, when you start healing, everything changes. Everything changes. People saying thank you just isn't enough anymore, because it's not filling the void you've been trying to fill. Because now you have an awareness that, oh my gosh, that's what I've been doing all this time now. That's what we do. But when you spend time on yourself, you start healing your own heart, your own life. The choices you make are very different. Your time becomes way more valuable than you ever gave it credit for. Your worth increases because now you're investing in you. I always ask people to make an assessment, to think about all the time and energy they've spent helping somebody else, and say, look at their lives. Did you do anything for them? Or was that your entertainment? Was that your pastime? Right? And I'm not saying that you find joy or you entertain yourself in helping somebody through their struggles. What I'm saying is it's been a distraction, because now you could avoid your own things because you're helping somebody else. When you get serious about healing, when you get serious about understanding, when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, when you don't want to complain about how people treat you anymore, let me know. then I'll help. Because you have to get to that point to say, no more. Enough is enough. And I love these people, but I love me more. And me needs me right now. Because you needs you. And the more you understand how important it is to pour into yourself, to cry, to heal, to do what you have to do, I promise you guys, it's worth every freaking tear. It's worth every tear. Expedited healing is a beautiful thing. But you have to be ready for it. You have to be ready to stop making the excuses you've been making because, everybody else somehow seems to be more important than you. And ask yourself that. Is the person you're helping more important than you? Why can't you just both be as important? I'm not saying you have to be better than anybody, but why can't you be just as important as that person you're helping? Why doesn't the you that needs you get the 30 minutes of beautiful talk and encouragement that you give somebody else every other week, every other day? Some of you have those people in your life that you're constantly encouraging and uplifting. How would you feel if you did it for yourself? What would change in your life if you did that for you? What would change if we stopped blaming other people for being who we are? My mom was this. My dad was that. My sister did this. You have no idea what happened to me. Of course I don't. I don't know you. I just don't know. I just know how it works when we stop blaming. When you start feeling into the pain. When you start restoring your health. When you start neutralizing negative memories. When you start going through your timeline to heal up the things that created who you are today. How much longer do you blame other people? And how does that make you any different than everybody else that you're trying to help to stop making excuses? Challenge yourself to think about those things. It's not comfortable. If it was comfortable, everybody would be doing it. I don't like to say it's not easy because I honestly feel that it's a lot easier than we think. Healing has been a beautiful journey for me. It started, but it never ends. The minute I started, I took a stance to say, me first. What do I feel? Why do I feel it? What does my life look like? What do I want? How do I change those things? I'm open. What training? What sessions? What healer? What practitioner? I was asking 1,000 questions. And every time I found somebody to fulfill that need that I had to help guide me, I didn't depend on them. And that's one thing I share with people. Don't depend on me. I will teach you, train you, show you, empower you to heal you with you. And you start getting this different level of understanding as you pursue the things that create your heart's desire. But you have to be ready to stop making excuses. You have to be ready to invest the time in you. You have to be hungry to want a better life for yourself. It doesn't work. It's not for the weak. But if you want a different life, and if you're ready for abundance and you're ready for healthy friendships, healthy relationship with yourself first, then call me. We can get you there. And again, it's a lot easier than what you think. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. If you were triggered, you're welcome. There are things that you need to dig into. This is your wake-up call. This is the sign that you've been asking for. What do I do? How do I get out of this? This is what you do. You stop making excuses. You get ready to go to bat for you. You get ready to fight your wars. You get ready to find out who you are without all this freaking trauma. Who you are without all the things that other people say you are. Who are you? Do you even know who you are? Do you even know who you are? But here you're trying to figure out how everybody is, what they do, how they work. Who are you? So excited to be here with you guys today. These are the things I love to talk about because these are the things that make a difference. I held a workshop last night. It was 2. We had a session at 10 and then went at 6 in the evening. And it was about letting go of excuses, of the statements that we keep telling ourselves, that we keep confirming over and over again, of the things that we say we are. And a lot of those things are not fun. But guess what? That's our reality right now. And so unless you're going to stay in the same place and keep complaining, because those of you who are going to do that, go for it. It does not affect my life in the bit. I just know there's a bigger, a better, and a more abundant way to live where you love waking up in the morning. And I know how to get there. I don't care what your past looks like. I don't care what you've experienced. I've heard so many stories that every time I heard it, I said, oh my gosh, this is probably the worst one I've ever heard. And guess what? And it's not to say that anybody's trauma is bigger than the other person's. I just know that trauma is trauma. Fear is fear. Mistakes are mistakes. And I also see the beauty that lies beneath all those things when you get ready to really start uncovering who you really are without all these belief systems. Pursue the life that you want to live, you guys. I promise you, it's a lot easier to attain than you'll ever imagine. So when you are ready, give me a call. Thank you so much. Remember, I'm here Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11 a.m. live on Facebook. Hoping you'll join that community. I can take any questions that you may have while we're on there. Also live on YouTube. We have a couple of social media platforms you can follow us on. Looking forward to you guys really giving yourself some time to check in with yourself. If you want to keep getting what you're getting, go for it. Do it. But if you want something better, give yourself a fighting chance. And many of you actually are fighting. You're just fighting the wrong. You're fighting the wrong opponent. You're fighting you. Stop fighting. Let's get it together and let's get this stuff taken care of for you. Have an amazing rest of your day. Have an awesome weekend. We'll see you guys here on Tuesday. Thank you so much for being here. Have an amazing day. Bye.